How can one Amazon FBA business with the same numbers be 3 times more valuable than another one? That's what I'm going to be discussing in this video. In this video, you will learn how to evaluate an Amazon FBA business. If you're selling on Amazon, then this is simply a must thing to know. Hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to get new videos every week. So the topic that we're going to be discussing today is Amazon FBA business valuation. So it's about how small but significant changes can triple the business valuation. And I know that sounds pretty crazy, like how can two different businesses that have the same numbers, how is it possible that just the other one is like 3 times more valuable than the other? It sounds pretty crazy, right? How can same numbers result into different valuation? And not just a bit different, like, but 3 times difference. I don't know, I mean, it's pretty crazy, right? But anyway, so the 2 main factors impacting the valuation of an Amazon FBA business are revenue and moreover profit. And in different business, in different industries, for example, in IT, it's just more about revenue and not so much as profit. But typically in e-commerce and especially in Amazon FBA business, the buyers are more interested in profit. So profit is really the thing that that impacts the business value. And well, this is basically a topic. When I started doing this presentation, I realized that, my God, like I could talk about this for a whole day. There's just so many different things that you can talk about in this, but let's just try to keep it pretty brief. And if you have any questions or don't understand anything or you want to know more, then let's just ask. But yeah, I mean, the first question is that, okay, since profit is the thing that really matters, then how exactly is this profit calculated? So there's 2 different things. So there's gross profit and net profit. So gross profit is just the revenue minus the cost of goods sold. So cost of goods sold, I mean, it includes manufacturing, shipping, and any kind of cost that is required in order to like manufacture or create the product. And since we are talking about physical products, usually one of the biggest cost is the shipping cost. So usually from China supplier to the Amazon warehouse. So that's the part of usually the biggest cost in terms of products. Then net profit, well, I mean, then we just take the previous gross profit and deduct the expenses. So then we have our net profit. But yeah, so what are these expenses that we need to be deducting from gross profit in order to get the net profit? Let's see. Well, I mean, it's basically like any kind of operational expenses, any kind of expenses that we need to pay for in order to run the business. And then advertising costs, like Amazon advertising, sponsored ads, or FBA, Facebook ads, Google ads, YouTube ads, any kind of advertising cost. Then marketing, for example, if you are doing some kind of like ranking campaigns, that's typically like marketing, or if you are doing giveaways, I mean, that's marketing cost as well. And different kinds of tools that we have. When you're selling on Amazon, there's many different tools, so we need to factor those in. Then any kind of training, services, and then also salaries. Well, it's not really expense as such, but it's still an expense. And any kind of other things that basically impact the business. What is required in order to keep the business running? So the formula for determining the business value. Basically, if you're talking about a business that is doing less than $10 million in annually, then we are going to be typically using this SDE, so seller's discretionary earnings. So typically, I mean, beyond that, we would be using like EBITDA, so earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, and so on. But I mean, in terms of Amazon FBA business that are smaller than 10 million per year, then we are going to be using this SDE. So it means this annual net profit, so net profit of 12 months. Then together with add backs, and then we take that figure and multiply it by basically the multiple that we are going to be getting. Then that equals the valuation for the business. So let's talk more about this, but let's first take an example. So maybe business has an business has this annual net profit of 200K that doesn't have any add back or doesn't really know how to add this, then has a multiple of 3, then that turns into 600K, so $600,000. And it's important to point out that, I mean, stock is not part of this. So whatever inventory you have, I mean, that's going to be added separately. So inventory is always paid for, but that's going to be coming in top of this valuation of itself. Meaning that, I mean, you get the amount that we have for the business value, but then separately you will get check for those inventory as well. And it's really important to point out that the payment terms really matter. Like, let's say you get $1 million for your business. I mean, does it matter to you if you get it in 1 year or a period of 10 years? That's pretty significant difference, right? Or let's say that it's based on the performance. Okay, you get the $1 million for your business, but it's going to be based on how your brand performs after the acquisition. So that would be pretty like strict terms. So often, I mean, usually we are going to be discussing like terms of cash upfront. If you get like offer that is not based on this, then it's, I mean, most of the deals that are taking place, it's usually cash upfront and then an earnout. And earnout is usually going to be like 2 years based on the brand performance. So that means that the higher profit is, then you're going to be getting bonus besides the amount that you already got when the acquisition happened. So it's the sales performance after the acquisition matters. So this means that it's usually like the next 6 months. So let's say that we sign papers today, and then there's this grace period, and okay, the funds are transferred. Then it really matters like what happens for 6 months after the sale. And here we, as the seller of our brand, we also need to consider that like, is the buyer really competent enough in running multiple Amazon FBA brands? Because if they don't have the competence, then what is going to be happening is that the sales are going to be declining. And if you have any kind of like earnout or bonus based on this performance, then that just means that you're not going to be getting any of it, because they don't know how to run the business, and the sales are just going to be declining. So it's not only about evaluating the Amazon FBA brands. I mean, it's not only about the buyers that are evaluating you when you sell your brand. It's also a question is that you are evaluating the buyers. But yeah, I mean, but what if we could get the multiple higher? So we saw that in the previous example, there was this multiplier of 3, but there are things that we can do in order to get the multiplier higher. So what kind of impact would it have? Let's see. First of all, I mean, what is this multiple? So it basically answers the buyer's question is that, okay, fine, I'm going to buy your brand, but how long will it take to get my investment back? So it's the return on investment. And if I'm being like using like a multiple of 3, then it typically means that, okay, fine, if there's no growth at all, then it's going to take me 3 years to get my investment back. This can and absolutely should be increased. And right now, and it is definitely is also, I mean, this is something that changes throughout time. And let's say that like 2 years ago or something like that, I mean, it was most of the sales that happened, they were around the multiplier of 3. But right now, it's possible to get the multiple of 6 and even like higher than that. But let's say like typically it's going to be from 3 to 6. So 3 to 6 times the annual, or 3 to 6 times the SDE. That's a better way of saying it. And this is really up to negotiation. And in a bidding contest where you have many different buyers interested in your brand, then you as the seller definitely have the upper hand. But let's say that if you are in a situation where we have only one aggregator is interested in buying a brand, then okay, fine, you don't really have much room for negotiation. But typically, I mean, right now there's hundreds of these Amazon aggregators, and it's quite likely that if one is interested in your brand, then there are definitely more others who are interested as well. Because I mean, the forecast was for this year that there's going to happen at least 1,000 acquisitions this year alone. So that's only this year. And I think it was last year that something like $7 billion was raised, and majority of those funds have not been used, meaning that it's just waiting on the buyer's bank account for these acquisitions to happen. So I mean, there are like hundreds of these aggregators, and they are hungry. They're really hungry. So that means that we, as the seller of and owners of Amazon FBA brands, we definitely have the upper hand. So how can we increase the multiple? Because it's kind of weird to think about it, that like business with the same SDE can have a different multiple. So that might seem weird, but that's just the way it is. And key factor is always growth. I mean, the more growth you have, the more appealing brand and more appealing company you definitely have. But let's say that at minimum, it's going to be like 20% per year. So if you have 20% year, 20% of growth profit, like every single year, then that's you basically already meet the minimum that the aggregators are looking for. But also there's different ways how we can make the brand more attractive. And this can depend on the buyer, meaning that different buyers, different Amazon aggregators are interested in different categories, and they have their specific fields that they are interested in, meaning that most of these, I mean, let's say that like one aggregator is interested in health needs, then I mean, typically they are going to be looking at different health brands that would fit their portfolio. And I mean, there are aggregators who don't really care about the category, and they will buy any brand that is, as long as it's making money, as long as the numbers are good, they will buy it. But there are also like many of these aggregators are focused on specific niches. Then this is a really important thing. I mean, in order to get a higher multiple, we absolutely have to reduce the buyer's risk. The more, I mean, the higher risk there is, the lower the multiple will be. Like, let's say that there's some brand that has been using a lot of like black hat tactics and those kind of things. Then I mean, it's really risky brand to buy. I mean, it doesn't mean that I wouldn't buy it. I wouldn't like add it to my portfolio, but you will definitely not get like the higher the multiple, because I mean, there's just so much risk on the Amazon account. So it will definitely like reduce the multiple. Then other things are like ease of transferability and verifiability, meaning that how can we verify the numbers? How can we verify trademarks, patents, those kind of stuff? Then another thing is different kind of patents, supplier exclusivity, uniqueness, listing attractiveness. I mean, these are all the things that can increase the multiple. So the better edge you have on the competitors, and let's say, I mean, I wouldn't say that patents are always something that would increase the multiple in every single case. No, it really depends on the product, and it really depends on what the competitors are doing. But I mean, typically, the more unique you are, the higher multiple you can get. And a really important point is this Amazon product listing. So I mean, the better the product listing is, I mean, the higher the multiple is going to be. So let's take our formula here, and let's see what is the difference if instead of like multiple of 3, we would actually be able to get the multiple of 6. So 200K SDE times 6, that's $1.2 million. So quite a difference there. And here's actually a bit of a case study. So I'm currently in the process of selling at least one brand. So just before Christmas, I had calls with different Amazon aggregators. So I think I had calls with at least like 5 of these aggregators who were interested in buying this brand. And basically one of them was saying that after I made the pitch, I mean, after I presented the brand, he said that, I mean, our starting offer will be at a multiple of 6 at minimum. So I mean, there are many things to be done to get the higher multiples, but it is also a case of like how you present the brand to the buyer. Like, how do you do the pitch and that kind of stuff. And I mean, obviously we want to get our multiple as high as possible. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's the buyer who's going to be choosing this. I mean, the buyer will ultimately decide the number. So, okay, let's say that if we really like this buyer, I mean, it seems like let's say, I mean, it's our baby and we have been taking good care of it for past few years or whatever, and we want to have a good buyer. So let's say that we have found one like good future owner for our brand, but I mean, this buyer is really fixated on a specific multiple. Like, let's say that he's saying that, okay, at maximum you will get 4. I mean, that's it. Then what else can we do to, I mean, increase the valuation? Then what we can do is that we kind of work with these add backs. So it's basically any kind of expenses that the buyer does not need to carry. But the thing is that these can also be like buyer specific. And it might be that some of the buyers accept different kinds of add backs that some others wouldn't. So it's also a matter of like how you present it and like what kind of how the buyer sees it. So that's definitely a big difference there. But I mean, obviously, for example, salaries, tools, training, courses, coaching, services. I mean, this kind of stuff, that's there. I mean, these will be deducted. But I mean, costs that we cannot deduct are different kinds of like manufacturing and shipping costs, like the cost of goods sold. I mean, these are not add backs. So we are not talking about those. Yes, so there's a question of, do add backs include having unique brand images? So Jani, can you elaborate a bit? What do you mean?
Yeah, for example, at our brand, we have been taking our own images and we are improving those. So there are not any kind of images that come from the picture bank and are crappy Photoshop images. So does this add to our cashback?
So you're saying that you have some costs related to these images? Or
come again?
So you mean that, are you able to so do you have some expenses or like cost related to these images?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, when it's a one-time thing, then I mean, and it's a thing that if I buy your brand, I don't need to pay for those anymore, then meaning that it's not any kind of license or that kind of stuff, then yes, it can be added. So if it's a cost or if it's an expense that I do not need to keep like paying for, then it can be added there. And but hey, this is also interesting thing, like the cost of goods sold. I mean, manufacturing and shipping cost. I mean, there's really, I mean, those are expenses that cannot be like deducted from, or I mean, those will be always, those will not be part of add backs. But there are other like logistics costs that can be, for example, tariffs. Like tariffs and tolls, they are often, I mean, they are usually company specific, which means that, I mean, it's possible that once I get your brand, I'm actually going to be paying less tolls and less tariffs than you are. So if you can really like present this in such a way, then those can be part of add backs as well. So, but I mean, but wait, we could actually even deduct marketing, like ranking expenses or giveaway expenses. We could even add those kind of things as add backs there. So we really need to be smart and consider that, okay, what are the expenses that we have had for the business, and is this something that the buyer doesn't need to be paying for, like once we sell the brand? Because if it's something that they don't need to keep paying for it, then yes, I mean, then we can add it there, which means that we will have a higher valuation. And I can really like emphasize enough the importance of these add backs, because I mean, being smart about this, it can result into differences of hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars directly into your pocket. And so it's any expense that the buyer does not need to carry can be deducted usually. I mean, as I mentioned before, it can be like buyer specific, but I mean, that's pretty much the bottom line. But if I, as the buyer, don't need to keep paying for those, then it can be added there. But yeah, let's take example there. So the first calculation we had before was without any of these add backs and multiple of 3. So this was the calculation we had there. So it was a business value of $600,000. So meaning that if you sell that business, that's what you're going to be getting. But I mean, if this same business with the same figures is actually smart about it and finds these different add backs there and different kind of expenses, so then you have a lower multiple of 3, and then with add backs, maybe they find like 50K of these add backs, then boom, we have immediately added like 150,000 of extra value for the business value. But hey, I mean, if we look hard enough, maybe we can find more of these one-time expenses. Like I mentioned before, maybe some just giveaway campaigns, ranking stuff that we did before, and it was a one-time thing, meaning that the buyer doesn't need to be paying for it. So whoops, maybe there's like 100K of these expenses. And here we can see that, okay, if there's 100K of ad backs, then we have added like $300,000 as an extra value. So originally it was like 600K and now it's $900,000. Voila, I mean, we just made an extra of $300,000 of cold cash. What if we were actually able to get a higher multiple and indecent? So we have not only been able to find those ad backs, but we have also made these some changes in addition, so we are able to get these higher multiples. So meaning that, okay, we have made our brand more attractive. We have made some efforts into making it more unique, and maybe we have done some supplier exclusivity as well. So if we are able to get this multiple of 6, and we have the previous like ad back of 100,000, then it means that the business value would actually be $1.8 million. So we just added like extra value of $1.2 million. So it's kind of like the valuation of the first valuation is like let's call it a poor sucker. So this seller, I mean, this business doesn't know how to maximize the multiple, doesn't understand these ad backs, and doesn't know how to maximize these ad backs. So that meaning that it's with no ad backs and with a multiple of 3, then it's going to be $600,000. So the seller is getting $600,000 for the business. Was that and I want to emphasize that these are the same numbers in both of these cases. It's the same revenue, same profit. So it's not like it's basically can be in terms of numbers, it's just a clone. It's the same business. But the option number B is that, I mean, the seller here understands what buyers want and knows how to use these multiples and ad backs. So then the seller is able to add this ad back of 100,000 and they get the higher multiple of 6, meaning that in this option, the seller actually gets paid like $1.8 million for the business. I know it sounds kind of crazy that how can it be that there's two businesses with the same numbers, same everything, but the other one is just like 3 times higher. So I mean, by being smart, we just tripled the business value. And what's crazy about this is that it's the same revenue numbers, the same profit numbers. It's really a thing that, I mean, lack of knowledge in this area can be costly. Or what do you think? The difference was like 3 times much. So it can be really costly. It's not just costly, it can be really costly. So lesson here is that we need to be smart. We need to be knowledgeable about these things that impact the business value, and we need to be knowledgeable about the things that about these 2 different factors. First of all, the multiple. How can we get the multiple higher? But then like I mentioned before, I mean, ultimately it's the buyer who decides the multiple. So if they are saying that, no, I'm going to be using a multiple of 4 for your business, then there's not really much you can do unless you have like a competing offer from a competitor. If you have that, then you have leverage and you can say that, okay, fine, you're giving me this offer, but hey, I have this much better one offer from this other buyer. But let's say that we are fixated on getting this one buyer to be the future owner of our brand. We really like the buyer or something like this. Then even in that case, we are still able to increase the business valuation, because it means that okay, fine, we are not able to increase the multiple, but we are able to find these different expenses that can be added back to the SDE, which will result into higher valuation. So yeah, I mean, this is actually really important things. And when you are selling your Amazon FBA business, this is something that you definitely need to like thoroughly understand and master, because I mean, as I pointed out, the difference will be like hundreds of thousands or even like millions of dollars. So lesson is that we need to be smart about this. Hit a thumbs up if you like this video and make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you want to learn how to build and sell a 7-figure business, then make sure to join my free Facebook group. In the group there's tons of free resources that you can use to build your business. See you there.